Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today I'm talking about Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back. After the events of Crash 1, the antagonist of this game, Cortex, discovers the power of these pink crystals. And he actually recruits Crash in order to gather up all of these crystals for him. He basically tricks him. So in every one of these levels, there is a pink crystal that is usually somewhere along the path to the end of the level. They are fairly obvious and you probably won't miss these pink crystals. However, there were 2 or 3 occasions when I just for some reason didn't see the pink crystal that was along the way and I had to replay the level again, which was kind of frustrating, but the levels themselves aren't too long. Takes maybe like 5 minutes max in order to clear a level, assuming that you're not struggling at a complicated or difficult part. Now there are some times where you have branching pathways and the pink crystal is only on a certain pathway, and so then I could see maybe missing one of the crystals. Most of the time though, it's like, what? I didn't find the pink crystal? And then I replay the level and of course it's like right there, and for some reason I just had my blinders on or something. The level selection is different than Crash 1. Crash 1 takes more of like this overworld pathway situation. Think something similar to Super Mario Bros. 3 for instance, but it is a fairly linear pathway. Compare that to Crash Bandicoot 2, where you're in this enclosed area and this tower is basically divided by floors. And so the first floor, you have access to 5 or 6 levels, and then once you get all the crystals in those 5 or 6 levels, you face a boss, and then you will be able to advance to the next floor, which will give you an access to a whole new set of levels to play through. I do kind of miss the charm of the overworld level selection that is in Crash Bandicoot 1, where it actually feels like you're traveling across the island and you get to see this whole overworld aesthetic compared to being just in this enclosed tower-like situation. But I do like the idea of being able to pick and choose the order that I accomplish these levels before I advance to the next floor. This layout is pretty easy to see like which levels I got crystals on or gems, and so if you are a completionist, I could see you probably preferring this type of layout rather than having to navigate to every single level and to check if you've completed everything to that level. Gems make a reappearance from the first Crash Bandicoot as well. The regular gem that you normally get if you destroy all the boxes is easier to get in this game compared to the first game because you can die and still get the gem if you destroy all of the boxes. And so I definitely got more gems in this game than I did the first one, but I certainly didn't go for like a 100% completionist run or anything like that. I normally don't when I play games. It's typically, hey, if I see a box that I can go destroy, I will destroy along the way. But just like in Crash Bandicoot 1, this game also has a lot of secret pathways and bonuses and different things that you'll have to navigate through in order to actually destroy every single box in the game and get all of the gems. It does have these like ghost platforms that you have to meet certain requirements in order to activate to go to certain bonuses, and there's even like this whole secret floor that you can navigate to if you access these secret areas while playing through certain levels. I only did this a handful of times, but I imagine this is the route that you have to go through in order to uncover some of the secret gems. It does add a decent amount of replayability to this game just because of all the different secrets that you can uncover if you're trying to get that 100% completionist run, which you might want to do because this is a shorter game, just like in the first Crash Bandicoot. If you are just playing through it normally, not trying to collect all the things, it's about a 3 to a 4 hour game depending on how good you are playing through the game, but I imagine it adds a lot of playtime if you are going through trying to unlock everything, which you probably will want to gather up all of the gems that you possibly can because there is an alternate ending. I don't know the specifics of the alternate ending because I didn't look that up, but there is one. I do know that. This game introduces Coco, that's Crash's sister. Now you could play as her in the first game, but I believe that's just part of the Sane Trilogy where they add that option. Here she is canonically introduced, and the whole reason you like end up going on your adventure is you were asked to go get some batteries for her laptop. And so periodically as you are gathering up these crystals and gems, you are going to be faced with this hologram of Cortex either like goading you to get more crystals, or it will be Coco trying to communicate with you that it's all a trick and it's a trap. And then sometimes you are encountered by by Cortex's other scientist guy. I can't remember his name right now, but I think he's more involved with like the secret ending once you gather up all of the gems. It also is the introduction, as far as I can tell, to Crash Bandicoot's iconic dance where he does his little, I can't even describe it. When we were first watching it, my wife was asking like, what is even happening here? And I was just like, it's the iconic Crash Bandicoot dance. How do you not know this? As far as like level structure, there is a little more variety mechanically and thematically compared to the first Crash Bandicoot. They introduced this whole icy biome that you're going to go through, and then they kind of lean more into space where you're occasionally flying around with like a jetpack in zero gravity situation. They have like the jet skis that you ride on the rivers. Instead of riding a hog, you ride this little baby polar bear. Crash Bandicoot also has a couple more movement options to his arsenal. They really utilize that circle button where he can do a little, almost like a dash, and then he can use that dash to gain a lot more distance on his jump. He can also crouch and then jump to get a lot more height on his jump, and then when he's in the middle of the air and he presses the circle button, then he can do like this big old belly flop. And there are certain boxes that can only be destroyed with the belly flop, and enemies that can only get destroyed or launched by sliding into them. I definitely like the slide move because it adds a lot more movement and flow to Crash Bandicoot, because in the first one he did feel pretty restricted. Like there wasn't a lot of flowing movement options. You pretty much are just like lining up your jump, getting ready to go, and then once it's opportunistic, that's when you make the jump. And in this game, it doesn't seem like you have to be as patient to land your jumps. As long as you really master this slide jump movement, then you will usually have enough room to clear that jump without having to do like a whole lot of timing. There is a couple levels, probably one of my least favorite levels actually, but there are certain surfaces on the ground that allow Crash to like dig into the surface, and so these bees will be chasing you, and then you can dig into the ground to avoid the bees from stinging you. The interesting thing about this game is, yeah, it introduces a lot of different mechanics and like vehicles and stuff that you can use, but it doesn't overuse them. Like really, if you don't like one of these things, like the I hear a lot of complaints about the jetpack levels that are in space. There's really usually only like 2 or 3 levels featuring these mechanics, and then it kind of moves on to a different idea, which I guess could be a good or a bad thing, because I really like the levels where you ride the little polar bear, or I like the levels where you are running away from a gigantic polar bear. I like those levels where you're running towards the camera. Now, as far as difficulty goes, I would say that this is about the same difficulty as the first Crash Bandicoot, or rather the difficulty is more like a traditional difficulty curve, where the earlier levels are definitely easier than Crash Bandicoot 1, but once you get to the final top floor that's more in like space, the difficulty definitely ramps up. One of the odd things about this game though is the difficulty about the bosses, because most of the bosses are jokes. Like they are fairly easy to defeat, but especially the final boss, like facing off against Cortex, was surprisingly easy, to the point where I thought that there would be multiple stages and I just cleared the first stage, but then it started playing the cinematic that I defeated Cortex. And so I am speculating at this point that if you get all the gems and do a secret ending, maybe there's like an alternative boss fight here. Again, I don't know that for sure, I'm just speculating, but like it was surprisingly easy. Like I was able to do it the first time. I actually had more difficulty with the boss before Cortex, the one where he's in like a gigantic mech suit and you're throwing Wumpa fruit at it. But some of the platforming in this game, especially with the introduction of things like nitro boxes, these are boxes that if you just touch at all, you will automatically blow up. And so they do throw around these nitro boxes, and especially if you're trying to get like a 100% completionist run, you're trying to get all the secret bonus things, and it is still a very difficult game if you're trying to do that. And I will say that the final floor for this game definitely gave me a run for my money. I was burning through a ton of lives there. Other than that, it's basically just like more Crash Bandicoot. Like they don't mix things up too much. If you play through Crash Bandicoot 1, you kind of already get the feel and the whole notion of Crash Bandicoot 2. I do think they refined a couple things, and I do like the new control options that Crash has. But yeah, it's basically just like more Crash Bandicoot, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think why fix what isn't broken? By the end of the credits, it said that I had completed 63% of this game, which isn't like a whole lot, but I still had a decent time playing through it. I'm gonna give this game a 3 out of 5. I think that's the same score that I gave the first Crash Bandicoot because they are fairly similar. I do like this game better than the first Crash Bandicoot, but it's, in all honesty, it's probably because I played this one a lot more as a child, so I'm more nostalgic about all the levels and the little polar bear cubs. There's this part where a little polar bear cub is just hanging out on one of the floors, and you can jump on it a couple times, and then you get a bunch of lives, and so that's like always the first thing I do when I get to that floor. Well guys, that's it for me. Let me know if you have any questions or comments about Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye!